Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Hub. Today's story is one of my favorites.
Picture this: Mobile, Alabama, 2019. Neon lights bleeding through humid air, casting everything in shades of desperation and hope. I'm sitting in this dive bar called The Anchor, nursing a whiskey sour and watching my life crumble in real time. My name is Chelsea, and 3 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was the art critic for the Mobile Bay Review, dating a successful lawyer named Miranda, living in a pristine condo downtown. Then Miranda decided she wanted half of everything I'd ever worked for, including my grandmother's house in Spring Hill. That's when Isabel walked in. I'd seen her before at gallery openings, art shows, the kind of events where Mobile's creative community gathered to pretend we were more sophisticated than we actually were. She was this force of nature, all wild curls and paint-stained fingers, creating these incredible tactile sculptures that made you want to touch them, to feel what she was feeling. She was deaf, and I'd always been too intimidated to approach her, partly because I didn't know sign language, but mostly because she was so luminous, like she carried her own light source. But that night, she looked as lost as I felt. She slumped into the booth across from me, and I noticed the divorce papers sticking out of her purse, the same kind I'd been dodging for weeks. Rough night? I asked, then immediately felt stupid. She was reading my lips in the dim bar light. Squinting. She pulled out her phone and typed, "Family thinks I'm broken. Need husband to prove I'm normal." You? I laughed, actually laughed for the first time in months. I typed back, "Ex-girlfriend wants my house. Need wife to complicate her legal." Strategy. We stared at each other across that sticky table, two desperate women with absolutely nothing to lose. That's when I said the words that changed everything. Want to get married? 3 hours later, we were at a 24-hour chapel in downtown. Mobile, signing papers with a notary who looked like he'd seen Stranger Things. The whole ceremony cost us $47 and a promise to split the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment in Midtown. Just until the legal stuff sorts itself out, I told her as we shook hands outside the chapel. She nodded that there was something. In her eyes, a flicker of amusement, maybe hope, that made me wonder if we both knew we were lying to ourselves. Moving in together was like mixing oil and water. I was all clean lines and neutral colors, everything in its place. Isabel? She was chaos incarnate. Within a week, our apartment looked like a rainbow had exploded. Her vibrant murals covered every wall, her sculptures occupied every surface, and her art supplies had invaded my carefully organized living space. We fought about everything, the dishes in the sink, her late-night painting sessions that left the apartment smelling like turpentine, my pretentious reviews that she'd read over my shoulder, shaking her head at my academic jargon. But God, the way she moved when she was angry. Her hands would fly, sharp and precise, cutting through the air like she was conducting an orchestra of fury. Even in our arguments, she was beautiful, especially in our arguments. The first month was survival. We established routines, boundaries, separate lives that happened to share the same space. I learned to navigate around her easel in the living room. She learned to tolerate my need for morning silence. We were like polite strangers playing house. The second month was when things started to shift. I caught myself watching her work. The way she'd lose herself in a piece, her whole body moving with the rhythm of creation. She'd painted this mural on the kitchen wall, a phoenix rising from flames, all golds and reds and impossible blues. When I complimented it, she smiled and signed something I didn't understand. That night, I downloaded a sign language app. By the third month, I could fingerspell basic words. Good morning. Thank you. Beautiful work. Isabel's face would light up each time I attempted to communicate in her language, patient with my clumsy hands encouraging with her expressions. She started leaving me little notes, sketches of my coffee cup with exaggerated steam, a drawing of me at my laptop, tongue sticking out in concentration, tiny observations that made me feel seen in a way I'd never experienced. Then came the night. The power went out. It was a Tuesday in October. One of those perfect Alabama evenings where the heat finally breaks and you can breathe again. I was working on a review of a new exhibition at the Mobile Museum of Art when everything went dark. The transformer on our street had blown, and the repair crew wouldn't arrive until morning. Isabel emerged from her studio, my former guest room, carrying a handful of candles and that amused smile I'd grown to love. She arranged them around the living room, transforming our space into something magical, intimate. We sat on the couch, and I pulled out my laptop, trying to work by candlelight. But the battery was dying, and I was getting frustrated, sighing dramatically as I saved my work. That's when Isabel touched my shoulder and signed something I didn't recognize. "I don't understand," I said, and she smiled, taking my hands in hers. She guided my fingers, showing me the sign for relax. Her hands were warm, calloused from years of sculpting, but gentle. She placed my palm against her chest, and I could feel her heartbeat, steady and strong. "Relax," she said aloud, her voice soft and slightly unclear in the way that reminded me she couldn't hear herself speak. It was the first time I'd heard her voice in weeks. She began teaching me more signs by candlelight: peace, joy, home. Each word was a touch, her fingers guiding mine, her face inches from mine as she demonstrated. Then she signed something more complex, and when I shook my head, she took my hands and spelled it out. Y-O-U-A-U-H-I-F-U. I stared at her, candlelight dancing across her face, and for the first time in my life, I understood what people meant when they talked about moments that change everything. I leaned forward and kissed her. It was supposed to be gentle, experimental, but she kissed me back with this hunger that took my breath away, her hands tangling in my hair, pulling me closer. We fell back onto the couch, and suddenly my careful boundaries were crumbling. Her lips moved to my neck, and I gasped, my hands finding the hem of her paint-stained t-shirt. She pulled back, looking at me with eyes that asked a question I answered by kissing her again, deeper this time. We were fumbling with buttons, breathing hard, when her elbow knocked over one of the candles. The flame caught the edge of the rug, and suddenly we were both scrambling, stomping out the fire while half-dressed and laughing. When the smoke alarm finally stopped shrieking, we stood there in the darkness, looking at the small burn mark on the rug and then at each other. Isabel started laughing first, this beautiful, uninhibited sound that made my chest tight. She signed, "Guess we literally set the room on fire." And just like that, our fake marriage had a very real complication. The next morning, I woke up in her bed, sunlight streaming through the windows she'd never bothered to cover with curtains. She was already awake, sketching in a notebook, and when she noticed me watching, she showed me the drawing, us tangled together, peaceful. "Good morning," I signed, and her smile could have powered the whole city. We didn't talk about what had happened. We didn't need to. Instead, we fell into a new routine. I'd make coffee while she painted. She'd leave sketches on my pillow. We'd curl up together on the couch in the evenings, my laptop on my knees, her head on my shoulder. I started learning sign language more seriously, enrolling in a class at the community college. I wanted to have real conversations with her, not just the basic exchanges we'd been managing. I wanted to know her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. The more I learned, the more I fell in love with her mind. She was brilliant, philosophical, seeing the world in ways that constantly surprised me. She told me about growing up deaf in a hearing, family, about the isolation she'd felt, about finding her voice through art. Art is the only universal language, she signed to me one evening. It speaks to everyone, regardless of what they can hear. I was writing more about accessibility in the arts, inspired by her perspective. My reviews became more thoughtful, more inclusive. My editor noticed, praising my fresh voice and unique insights. What he didn't know was that my unique insights came from lying next to Isabel every night, learning about the world through her eyes. We were happy. Genuinely, surprisingly happy. The fake marriage had become real in every way except legally. We talked about making it official, about having a real ceremony, about building a life together. That's when everything fell apart. The review came out on a Thursday. I was at my desk at the Mobile Bay Review, editing a piece about emerging artists, when my phone started buzzing. Text after text from friends in the art community, all asking the same thing. Did you see what? Marcus wrote about Isabel's show. Marcus Chun was my predecessor, the art critic who'd left for a position at Art in America. He was also my ex-boyfriend, the one who'd cheated on me with a gallery owner from Birmingham. I thought he was out of my life for good. The headline read, "Local Artist's Latest Exhibition, Style Over Substance." I read the review with growing horror. Marcus had eviscerated Isabel's latest show, calling her work emotionally manipulative and pandering to disability activism rather than pursuing genuine artistic merit. He questioned whether her sculptures were art or therapy, suggesting that her deafness was being used as a marketing gimmick. It was cruel, personal, and completely unprofessional. But the worst part was the final paragraph. Perhaps most concerning is the way Isabel. Morgan's work has been elevated by critics who seem more interested in virtue signaling than honest assessment. When personal relationships cloud professional judgment, the entire art community suffers. He was talking about me, about us. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling sick. Because the truth was, I had been championing Isabel's work. I'd written glowing reviews of her exhibitions, recommended her for grants, used my platform to highlight her unique perspective. I'd told myself it was because she was talented, and she was, but I couldn't deny that loving her had influenced my professional judgment. When I got home that evening, Isabel was waiting for me, the review printed out on the kitchen table. Her face was a storm of hurt and betrayal. "Did you know?" She signed, her movements sharp and angry. "Know what?" "That he would write this, that this was about you." I shook my head, but she wasn't finished. "He's right, isn't he? You've been writing about me because we're together. Your reviews, your articles, they're not real. They're just pity." "That's not true," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I could see the doubt in her eyes. She stood up, walking to the window. "I need to know that my work matters. But I'm not just your charity case. Isabel, you're incredibly talented. That has nothing to do with us." She turned around, and I saw tears in her eyes. How can I believe that? How can anyone believe that now? The fight that followed was unlike anything we'd had before. She accused me of using her, of building my reputation on her back. I accused her of not trusting me, of letting Marcus poison something beautiful. We said things we couldn't take back, hurt each other in ways that went deeper than words. By the end of the week, she'd moved out. The apartment felt hollow without her, her easel gone from the living room, her mural covered with a coat of white paint, her laughter absent from the morning routine I'd grown to cherish. I threw myself into work, writing reviews with a mechanical precision that earned praise from my editor, but felt empty to me. I avoided art openings, knowing I might see her there. I avoided our favorite coffee shop, the park where we'd walked on Sunday mornings, the sculpture garden where she taught me to see art with my hands as well as my eyes. The divorce papers appeared on my kitchen counter a week later, already signed. I stared at them for hours, pen in hand, unable to sign my name, because signing them would make it real, would make it over. Instead, I got drunk. Spectacularly. Shamefully drunk. I sat in that same dive bar where we'd first met, nursing whiskey and wondering how something so beautiful could have burned so quickly. That's when I realized what I had to do. I spent the next 3 days writing, not a review, not an article, but a letter, a confession, a love story disguised as professional accountability. I called it Critiquing My Own Heart, a love letter to artistic integrity. In it, I admitted everything. That I'd fallen in love with Isabel, that my feelings had influenced my writing, that I'd been dishonest with my readers about my relationship with her work. But I also wrote about why her art mattered independent of our relationship, about the way she'd opened my eyes to accessibility in the arts, about the genuine talent that Marcus had dismissed, about the importance of diverse voices and art criticism. I wrote about love too, about how it doesn't diminish art, it illuminates. It about how the best critics, the most honest critics, are those who allow themselves to be moved, to be changed by what they encounter. I published it in the Mobile Bay Review without telling my editor first. I knew it might cost me my job, my reputation, everything I'd worked for. But losing Isabel had already cost me more than I could bear. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Other critics shared their own stories of personal connections to their work. Artists thanked me for my honesty. The piece was shared thousands of times, sparking conversations about ethics, authenticity, and the role of emotion in criticism. But the only response that mattered never came. 3 months later, I was covering the opening of a new exhibition at the Mobile Museum of Art. The show was called Bridging the Silence, and it featured tactile installations designed to be experienced by both deaf and hearing audiences. I turned the corner into the main gallery and stopped dead. The centerpiece was a massive sculpture, a phoenix rising from flames. Its wings spread wide, its surface textured to invite touch, but this wasn't just a visual experience. Visitors could feel the heat of the flames through carefully placed, warming elements, could sense the movement of air through hidden fans, could experience the sculpture's rebirth through all their senses. It was Isabel's work, but evolved, expanded, more ambitious than anything she'd created before. I was standing there, tears streaming down my face, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. She was behind me, more beautiful than I remembered, her eyes cautious but not cold. "What do you think?" she signed. I fumbled for the words, both in English and in sign language. It's incredible. It's like you've created a new language." She smiled, and I saw some of the tension leave her shoulders. "I've been learning about accessibility, about reaching people who experience art differently. Like me," I signed, and she nodded. "Like you." We stood there looking at her phoenix, not talking about the elephant in the room. Finally, she signed, "I read your article." My heart hammered. "And?" It was brave, honest, everything I fell in love with about your writing. "And us?" She was quiet for a long moment. I was angry, hurt, but I was also scared. Scared that maybe I wasn't good enough on my own. "You are," I said aloud and signed simultaneously. "You always were." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folded piece of paper, the divorce papers torn in half. "I never filed them," she said. "I couldn't." I stared at the torn papers, then at her face. "What does that mean?" "It means I've been miserable. Without you. It means I'm tired of being afraid. It means—" She paused, searching for the right words. "It means I want to try again, for real this time." I pulled her into my arms right there in the gallery, surrounded by her art and the people who'd come to celebrate it. I kissed her like I'd been drowning, and she was air, like she was the only thing that mattered in the world. Because she was. We didn't move back in together right away. We dated. Properly this time, without the confusion of a fake marriage, without the pressure of shared rent and legal complications. We learned each other again, more slowly, more intentionally. I continued my sign language classes, eventually becoming conversational. She started speaking more, her voice growing stronger and more confident. We found new ways to communicate, new ways to understand each other. I changed how I wrote about art, disclosing my relationships and interests, being transparent about my perspective while maintaining my critical standards. My editor was initially skeptical, but the honesty seemed to resonate with readers. My writing became more personal, more authentic, more human. Isabel's work evolved too. She started creating pieces specifically designed for mixed audiences, installations that could be experienced fully by people with different abilities. Her Phoenix sculpture became the centerpiece of a traveling exhibition about accessibility in the arts. We bought a house together in Spring Hill, not far from the one my grandmother had left me. We turned the garage into a studio space, half for her sculptures and half for my writing. The walls were covered with her sketches and my articles, our lives intertwined in every corner. 6 months later, I proposed. Not with a ring, but with a sculpture I'd commissioned from her friend Nuria, two figures, one signing, one speaking, their hands meeting in the middle. Will you marry me? I signed. For real this time? She laughed, that beautiful sound I'd fallen in love with in the candlelight. I thought you'd never ask. We had the ceremony in the sculpture garden at the Mobile Museum of Art, surrounded by art and friends, and the kind of love that makes you believe in magic. I wore a midnight blue dress that Isabel had helped me choose. She wore white with flowers in her hair that matched the ones I'd painted on her studio wall. My vows were spoken and signed simultaneously. I promised to see you, to hear you, to love you in every language we create together. Hers were signed and interpreted by her sister. I promise to show you the world through my eyes, to share my silence and my voice, to love you in every way I know how. The reception was held at our house, the backyard strung with fairy lights that Isabel had designed herself. Our friends, artists and writers, deaf and hearing, all the people who'd watched us fall apart and come back together celebrated with us until the early hours of the morning. That night, lying in bed with my wife, my real wife, I traced the tattoo she'd gotten on her shoulder, a phoenix rising from flames, its wings spread wide, reaching for the sun. What are you thinking? She signed in the darkness. That we're lucky, I replied, that we got a second chance. She pulled me closer, her heartbeat steady against my chest. We made our own second chance. A year later, we opened the Phoenix Studio, a community art space in downtown Mobile. It was part gallery, part workshop, part meeting place for artists of all abilities. The main wall featured a massive version of Isabel's Phoenix mural, but this one was interactive. Visitors could add their own flames, their own colors, their own vision of rebirth. I ran the literary programs, hosting readings and workshops, and publishing a quarterly magazine featuring work by emerging artists. Isabel taught sculpture classes, working with everyone from children to seniors, deaf and hearing students learning alongside each other. The studio became what we'd always dreamed of, a place where art existed without barriers, where communication took many forms, where love and creativity intersected in ways that changed everyone who walked through the door. Want to know the truth about love? It's not the fairy tale they sell you in movies. It's not finding someone who completes you. It's finding someone who challenges you to become more complete yourself. Love is learning a new language at 35 because you want to understand the person you can't live without. Love is tearing up divorce papers because you'd rather fight for something real than settle for something safe. Love is building a life together that's bigger than either of you could have created alone. Isabel and I didn't have a perfect love story. We had a real one. We lied to each other. We hurt each other. We nearly destroyed each other. But we also saved each other in ways we didn't even know we needed saving. We started with a fake marriage, a desperate attempt to solve our individual problems. But what we found was something neither of us had been looking for, a love that was fierce and tender, complicated and simple, silent and loud all at once. They say love is blind, but that's not true. Love sees everything. Love sees the paint under your fingernails and the doubt in your eyes and the way you move through the world like you're carrying light. Love sees the words you can't say and the ones you don't need to. Love sees the person you are and the person you're becoming and loves both equally. 5 years later, I still wake up every morning amazed that I get to love her, that she lets me love her, that we built something real from something false, something lasting from something that was supposed to be temporary. The fake marriage. Certificate is framed in our hallway now, next to the real one. A reminder that sometimes the best things in life start with a lie and end with the truest thing you've ever known. Love isn't about finding your other half. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be whole. Someone who sees your fire and doesn't try to put it out, but instead helps you build it into something that can light up the world. That's what Isabel did for me. That's what we did for each other. We turned our fake marriage into a real love story. We turned our individual fires into something that could burn brighter together than either of us could alone. We became our own phoenix, rising from the ashes of who we thought we were supposed to be into who we actually were all along. And that, my friends, is the truth about love. It's not about finding someone who fits into your life perfectly. It's about finding someone worth rebuilding your life around, someone worth learning a new language for, someone worth fighting for, even when the fight seems impossible, someone worth catching fire for. Because in the end, the best love stories aren't about people who never hurt each other. They're about people who hurt each other and choose to heal together, who break each other down and build each other back up, who see each other at their worst and somehow find a way to love each other at their best. That's us. That's our story. That's the love that grew from a lie and became the truest thing either of us ever knew.